Hello, I'm Dr. Dana. This is Added Beauty. Um, I'm doing this for ambitious midlife women who are a little burnt out, a little overwhelmed. You're ready to reclaim your rest. You're ready to build or reclaim your wealth. You're ready to redesign your life through radical relaxation. And I think it's so we can stop surviving and start thriving. This is day 22 for me, out of a 100-day sprint that I was challenged to do in a masterclass that I took about how to post on YouTube. So as the teacher, her name is Glow, mentioned, the first however many videos, you may be just getting the bugs out and figuring out what you want to say. I've got a lot of things to say, but most important is that this space is for us women to renew, to breathe, to rest, to be creative, to come back to ourselves, to reprioritize ourselves, and to do it in style, and to do it with fun, to do it with creativity, to do it with joy. And so that's what you're gonna find here at Added Beauty. Today I'm gonna talk to you about stuff that's happening in my life. Right now, I am job hunting. And so, I have a job. So let's start there. I have a job. I have a good job actually. And I'm grateful for it. Don't get me wrong. But when it's time, and it's about that time. For a number of reasons. The company's got some stuff going on, and I'm ready to take the next step personally and professionally. And so, for a combination of reasons, it's time. So when I start looking for a job, I do it as though, my ear's itching. I do it as though, does that mean something? I don't know if that means something. Anyway. As though I'm looking for a job, right? I make that my job. So I aim for putting in at least one application a day, like being methodical about it. If I have more time, like on a weekend, I think each weekend day I put in 2. And, try to follow up. If you get an interview, then you send that letter that, thank you so much. Really appreciated the opportunity to talk to you or to learn about the, opportunity. Really interested, all of that. And, you're sincere about it. Of course, you personalize it and you make it true to what you actually talked about. It is interesting because going through this process of looking for my own job, is kind of parallel while I am hiring or trying to hire a number of people where I work. So I run an operating room. I run departments that are in surgical services. And that means I would be hiring like nurses, techs, surgical techs. So those are the people that assist and pass the instruments and stuff. People who are like the orderlies in the OR and a few other different designations and titles and things. It could be also for sterile processing. Those are the people that clean the instruments and make sure everything is, sterile and ready to go. Highly regulated area, very much more work than people think it is. And then also it could be any of the departments. I have a manager that covers like the pre-op and recovery and all of that. I have a GI department, lots of departments. Anyway, so there's people that do all kinds of different things. And as you're trying to hire them, you go through whatever your process is. And it's interesting because I'll speak for myself. I find myself wanting to hire more people than I have capacity to hire sometimes, because you like them or you're rooting for them, you want to see them win. And then also, sometimes you see the applicants and you're like, what were you thinking? Or you really didn't want a job, did you? So, but it's interesting because right now in this particular job market, it's hard out here for a player to find a gig, right? So people are trying all sorts of things to get in front of you. You know, sometimes they're fudging a little bit on, meeting the requirements. And then once you interview them, you're like, oh, I see what you did there, but I can't take you, you know. But I also find that the mentor in me comes out, the mama in me comes out, and the daughter of a teacher in me comes out, because sometimes, especially with the younger ones, I will, know that I'm not going to hire them necessarily at that moment. That doesn't mean never, but at that moment. But I will sometimes stop to give them some advice that I hope will help make their search easier, right? So, sometimes it's something as simple as you got some misspellings like right there near the top of your resume. Sometimes it's, you have to walk a fine line of what you can say when you're doing the HR thing or not. But, like sometimes people put a big old picture of themselves on the resume and you're like, that's great. You're not auditioning for America's Next Top Model. Obviously I don't say that to them, but you just kind of go, all right. A lot of times now, and I'll give them a little bit of effort for trying, especially you never know if it's someone's first time trying to get a professional job, or you don't know, like, who they have at home, or, a school counselor or anybody like that could be helping them to figure out how to navigate that. But like a lot of the resumes you can see that they did a cut and paste of job description X and plopped it right in their resume. So it's like the whole long descriptor of what the job details are, and they've just copied and pasted it verbatim and said, I did all of this. And sometimes it has literally nothing to do with the job they've applied for, and they don't take the time to tailor it to what they've actually applied to. And yeah, that's kind of a giveaway. I've had a lot of applicants who don't have their first job in their, the field that they've just studied for. And so they'll try to use their clinical hours as their job experience. But then, of course, that doesn't work if the job description says you must have been working, like a paid job, working for X amount of months or years or whatever before we can hire you. So, one of the things though is you don't want people to get discouraged because they're trying to do something, right? They're trying to get a job and do honest work for honest pay, and that's honorable in its own way. And so, and also, people got these bills. I know I do. So, like, how do you help a person that is coming back into the job market, or this is really their first go around at trying to get a professional job? And so, like, I'll talk to folks gently, ever so gently. And sometimes if it was the right circumstance, I can say, look, I'm taking off my hiring manager hat and I'm putting on my auntie hat for just a second. Like, your job title right here for the one job you've run 2 of the 3 words together and one of the 2 is spelled wrong. So fix that first. So whether I hire you or don't hire you, I don't want you to send this resume to the next person like this. And those who are serious about it can take the constructive feedback and say, you know what, thanks for letting me know. Also, one of the things that I find myself saying to some of the applicants, because of some of the positions that'll get posted, you might get 20, 30, 50 applicants for one position. And the person may interview perfectly well and everything's good, except for I've only got one position. So then that's where you kind of are like, well, here's what I would say, which is A, don't give up, and B, just keep applying. Every time you see something that fits the parameters that I post, or anywhere within our company, we have sister other hospitals posts, or even in the community, just keep applying, because that could be the case of what happened. Like, don't take it personally. It could just be that you were one of many qualified candidates, and maybe somebody else just happened to be that one this time. Frequently, it could be you have an internal person that is going to take the job. Even on some of the entry-level jobs, sometimes people that have a lot more experience apply, and you have to consider that too. And it could be anything, but it doesn't mean that you did something wrong necessarily. It doesn't mean that you didn't stick in my mind, or so I'll encourage people to apply again, and apply to, early and often and frequently. Not like voting, you get one. But that the next time might be your time to shine, right? The next time might be that moment that's lined up for you. And I try to remind myself that too in my own job search, because I know generally I interview well, and I know what I'm talking about. I've been doing it long enough. So, sometimes for me, if I looked at my own resume, and I have, obviously, I've had some places where I moved around a little bit, and some of it was because I was working interim jobs. So that's what happens when the interim job's over, you move around. And a couple of the times it was because things were happening in my family, and I had to make choices to support what was going on in my family. And so I try to look at resumes with an eye for that too, instead of just dismissing people out of hand. Like, looking for, do I see why this succession of things makes sense? And so, like, I could give you an example. For me, I finished nursing school in Baltimore, and I got my first nursing job in Baltimore. And at that time, even though I'm from California, I thought I was going to stay there for a while. And then my grandfather got sick. He was diagnosed with terminal prostate cancer. And he was like a dad to me, really. And I was a nurse in the family, and I wanted to spend the time that he had left with him, and I wanted my kids to experience him too, even more. And so we relocated back to California. And what happened? I had to switch jobs, right? So different things can happen for different reasons. I've switched jobs once to be in a service area that was better for where my son could get the services that he needed for his medical treatments and things. And, if I have to explain that, I have to explain that. But, you hope that people understand that you prioritize family, and it doesn't make you flaky, etc. Right? So all that to say, when you have like gaps, or, looks like you can't stay still, make sure you can kind of like head that off, because they're going to ask, or they're going to not ask, make an assumption, and it'll be the wrong assumption, and it'll probably X you out of the opportunity where you could have potentially, just let them know what it was, and they go, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. All right. Sometimes I interview people, and then they come on really strong, like they're interviewing you, and sometimes that tactic can work a little bit in terms of when you get to that point where you say, okay, do you have any questions? You actually want the person to ask reasonable questions so that they know what they're getting into. But if they come into it kind of like, I didn't like this place because of this, and I didn't like this place because of this, and I didn't stay here because they were doing this, so what you got going on? That's a little bit rough. Red flag, red flag. I get people that are late. I get people, late to the interview, like significantly late. Now, if you're having a technical difficulty, like A lot of times the first interview's on a Zoom or something. All right. Sometimes I have a technical difficulty. It depends on how the system is working that day. But if you're too late, that's an issue. Had a candidate that was 20 minutes late to a panel interview for, an upper level job. And of course, that didn't sit very well. Missed opportunity. And I've had people show up and they're dressed inappropriately, even on Zoom. So one person was wearing something that had, all of this out. And then as, we're talking, keeps doing this. And I don't even think the person was actually trying to, show me the cleavage. It's not something that would attract me, but anyway, but I think maybe she was not so aware of how that came off. And, in that particular case, I wasn't even sure. I think sometimes this is one of the things my mom taught me, is, sometimes people, of course they do better when they know better, but also people are working with what they have. Maybe you don't have a professional suit or, dress blouse and your pearls and whatever it is, but also maybe nobody's at home told you that, you don't bring out the girls to your interview. And then also, sometimes you don't know what people have in their closet, right? Maybe they're doing the best they can. This was the best thing they had or the dressiest thing they had or whatever. And so you also don't want to, make an assumption that people have, a different intent. And in this case, I think the person was really trying to do their best, and that's just what they were working with. But, and it didn't affect the interview in terms of what I heard about their skill set, but I wanted to say, and I didn't say anything in this case because I didn't know how to say it without being potentially inappropriate for me, but I wanted to kind of gather her and say, baby girl, going forward for your other interviews, just wear a button-down shirt or something, and yeah, be who you want to be in your life for the most part, but in certain situations, you got to be a little conservative looking, at least, I said looking, and to, potentially be more successful in some of the interviews with people. I'm not speaking about me specifically, but just what I've seen, right? For me, I got a call today that a job that I had applied for, and like I said, I've been applying to many. This particular one, I was, pretty hopeful that maybe it could work out because the first interview went very, very well. And I was referred to the next step and, discuss what the salary would be and all of that. They told me what they would like to pay me if all goes well, etc. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe this might have potential. And I got the call today from that recruiter saying, well, so sorry, but you weren't the chosen candidate. And it was interesting because what he actually said was, I think the hiring manager is looking for a unicorn and she ain't gonna find it. But even so, I'm not that unicorn for this particular position. And it was funny because I said, yeah, in reality, it would have been an increase in salary because of a change of geography to do the same job. Significant increase in salary to do the same job, but different part of California. But I've been doing this job for 4 years. And so, and and successfully, very successfully, and a lot of deliverables to show for it. And so, kind of like, what's that about? But at the same time, I have also been praying for clarity, for discernment, and I have been asking God to close the doors that are the wrong doors and open the doors that are the right doors. So when I got this call, I was kind of like, but not like really, not like angry, but just kind of like, all right, I guess that isn't it then, And when I tell you, not even, so I'm still actually on the phone with the gentleman, and I'm thanking him for actually being classy enough to call me directly to say this to me versus, sometimes you get that thanks but no thanks auto-generated email. And, we had a little conversation, but basically, he was just being classy enough to do this in person. And I was like, you also want to keep connection warm. And so I was like, just keep me in mind for, if this or this comes up that might match with me, all of that, and, leave it with a good impression always. Because you never know, you burn a bridge, you might have to go back across that bridge. You might need to go back across that sucker. So, if at all you can, keep your connections warm. But so, anyway, I think the email came in literally while I was hanging up the phone with him. And it was one of those things, I was like, I didn't have the phone in my hand. We were talking, in my car on the Bluetooth kind of a thing, but you push the button to turn it off. I was sitting in the queue to drive through the car wash at Costco after work. It's like, I better get my gas for the rest of the week, and boy, this car is dusty. Let me get that taken care of while I'm here. And then I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was like, oh, hold on. I see this is, the recruiter guy. Let me call you back. And, like how you send that, let me call you back. I had to hang up, can't click back over. And so I have a conversation with dude, hang up, and I'm like, well, I guess it's not that one. And first of all, it was hilarious because my friend hadn't actually hung up. It was still talking. And so we just picked right back up like whatever. But then also the text message came in, you hear the tone, and I looked, and it's like, oh, good news, congratulations. So on a different job that I had applied to, that I actually really wanted more than the one that I had just gotten the no thanks from, they said, you've made it to the next level. Congratulations. And, you're still in the running to be America's Next Top Model, basically, right? But that one is still a possibility, which is awesome. And it was funny because I said, oh, guys got jokes, because he didn't even let me sit there and stew for 5 seconds on this one before this one came through and said, yeah, we love you. We know who you are. Come on, right? This one's like, we sleeping on you. We know you're good, but we're going to sleep on you anyway. That's okay. So you have to put it in perspective. For me, same thing I'm telling some of the folks that apply to jobs that I have posted. For this one, it was not my time to shine. And also, I may have dodged a bullet. For this one, maybe it will be my time to shine. And I'll go in there and be real shiny. It could be neither one. I've applied to some other things too. But I have a piece about it because I know that I'm going to land where I'm supposed to. And every move that I've made professionally has moved me forward, even if sometimes in the moment I didn't understand why things were happening the way that they were. In my nursing career, I've never had so much trouble until I got into leadership. As a staff nurse, always stellar reviews, stellar this and that, and I'm still stellar, but I've got to say I've had some times where I've dealt with staff at different places who did not want me to be their boss, or did not want me to come in and have more, degrees or experience or understand how to solve this problem where they might have been struggling with it or whatever. And, at different points, it's been frustrating because, well, you know why. It's been frustrating. But even when things have been really hard, or someone or several someones have made it very hard, but it didn't have to be, every step in my professional career has moved me forward. And then, a couple of times later on, you look back and go, I didn't understand why this was happening at this time, but it turns out to be one of those that, what this person meant for evil, God used it for good, right? Someone trying to hold me back here, and then I kind of, juke moved and went somewhere else to not be held back, because you ain't gonna hold me back, allowed me to take, a couple of steps forward. And I'll keep you posted. One of the things I applied for, if I get it, it would be kind of like a full circle moment, because it would be a position that someone blocked for me a few years ago. So we'll see. Or it may be something completely different that's also going to move me forward. But either way, it's just an interesting process to kind of watch the parallel of what I'm working on versus, what I'm trying to help other people work on who are coming into my workplace, and, trying to mentor people and writing letters of recommendation for people, and, writing grant suggestions or recommendations for people and stuff like that. And, some good things have come back around too. So I would say, even though it's a really hard job market right now, and especially for Black women, there's all these posts and things about how Black women are getting done dirty, especially those that work like in DEI and things like that, but just in general getting done dirty. I'm choosing to be hopeful. I'm definitely choosing to be prayerful. And I know that God's got my back. I'm going to land on my feet like I always do. And, it's good. And then I'm doing it from a place right now, which is the best place to be, where I have a job. I'm not looking because I don't. I'm looking because I'm being proactive, and it's time. I'm finishing a new degree, new certification, done this level for 4 years. It's time to think about what the next level could look like. And, ways to be expansive, and ways to offer more to the world of what you have, and also see more of what the world has for you, right? Also hopefully with new jobs should come some financial gain, and I will use that to add a little beauty to my life, right? The beauty could be paying off some debt. The beauty could be taking another trip. The beauty could be, all of the above. So we'll see. 2026 is off to a good start. I did my 31 days of my Proverbs Wisdom Challenge that I challenged myself to do alongside the folks that were doing the challenge. And I think probably the next month or so is going to be a lot of change. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm embracing it, and I hope that you are doing well too. I know there's so much going on, and at the same time, we've got to be intentional about finding joy in the moment, appreciating all the things that are going well, and being a little silly sometimes. So you may have noticed I'm good at that. But anyway, I would say let's take our breath. Recenter. Remember who we are. Remember we are worthy of rest. We've earned it. And worthy of joy. Earn that too. You don't have to shrink who you are. You don't have to be anything but who you are. And somebody's going to find it to be really beautiful. I hope our time added a little beauty to your life, and I hope you remember to give someone a compliment, or just be kind, say something nice to them, because that adds beauty too. And people don't get as much of that as they should. So maybe it's a hug. Maybe you're giving somebody just a little bit of love, and that could change a whole day or save a life. You don't know. At any rate, I hope you add some beauty to your life. I hope you like and subscribe. I hope you tell somebody about us. And I hope you come hang out tomorrow on, let's call it day 23. All right. Have a good evening. Bye.